We're going to talk about the adventure plan. We're going to talk about the 22 different activity zones, the diverse audience that we're trying to attract with Explore Park, and then the flexible framework. And this is extremely important, especially from much of the private development that we'd like to see at the park. Then we're going to talk about the impacts on partnerships as well as tourism. So this is our vision for Explore Park. Now, as you enter into the park off the Blue Ridge Parkway, we have our Adventure Village. And this is where currently the Blue Ridge Parkway Visitor Center is at. And we want to be able to transform this into your entrance gateway into the park. We want to be able to have different type of components such as gas station, country store. We want to be able to have your adventure area to start your zipline tours. You have your visitor center and Taubman Center that we want to be able to utilize for different services at the park. But then also have some of your more passive type of recreation opportunities such as playgrounds, picnic areas, and event centers. And then I really believe that the jewel that we have in this area is Brew Tavern. This is a half modern, half historic building that we want to be able to transform into some type of restaurant, brewery, boutique distillery, and have it as its own destination unto the park. As I mentioned, we want this to be our commercial hub, as well as your gateway to beginning your adventure at Explore Park. Next, we're going to focus a little bit on the Riverside Village, which is the current historic district of Explore Park, and which overlooks the Roanoke River and is just magnificent. What we want to be able to do here is where you have your access to the Bedford County property, go across the Roanoke River. We want to be able to bring in the Roanoke River Greenway and connect into Explore Park. Once this is done, you will be able to walk from Greenhill Park to the city of Salem, to the city of Roanoke, into Roanoke County, and all the way to Rock Point and have over 30 miles of greenway to be able to be on. We also want to be able to transform the current historic district into an event center where you're able to have concerts, festivals, and different types of activities. Also in the Roanoke River, we want to be able to increase the paddling opportunities for kayaks and canoes, and we want to have them in River Park. That allows you to be able to change the different type of experience you have based off of the water level in the river. We think in itself that the in-river park can be one of the biggest tourist destinations at the park outside of Mount Rock. One of the things that I really like about this top picture is there is a great barn that is there in the historic district that we would like to transform into and repurpose that building to be an event venue as a stage for different concerts and activities. We think that repurposing many of these buildings will help us not only to be able to continue to tell the story of previous editions of Explore Park, but also to maximize the use and be able to really utilize these facilities and make good use and continue to tell the story. Next, we want to be able to focus on camping. This is one of the things that is a part of our master planning process that was very important from the Blue Ridge Parkway. Along the Blue Ridge Parkway, there's not a lot of camping opportunities. There's not a lot of camping opportunities that have full service hookups in terms of water, electric, full service connections for RVs, cabins, and such. So we've planned several different types of camping on site, from tent camping to your more remote hiking type camping where you have to leave your car and walk several miles with your different, with all of your equipment to be able to have more serene type of camping other than just pulling into a campsite with your vehicle. And then of course we want to have cabins and yurts on site. We also would like to see one or two tree houses, but we'll look at those maybe as that develops later on in additional phases of the park. But we think with alone just with camping that we will have big success with accommodations just based off of those features. But we want to be able to have a variety of different accommodations. We're also, and I'll talk about in a little while, we're also looking at wanting to have a lodge on site, having a hotel of a different level of accommodation for your camping or even your cabin so that we can appeal to a very diverse audience. Next, we're going to focus on RV camping. This was another piece of feedback from the National Park Service that they thought was very, very important. There's not a lot of RV camping along the Blue Ridge Parkway, especially in our area, and they felt that this was a piece that we needed to add within the plan to be able to accommodate travel trailers and RV vehicles and have the 75 amp hookup that you don't see along the Blue Ridge Parkway. We think that we'll be able to tap into much of the 13 million travelers up and down Blue Ridge Parkway, and many of them are in RVs and travel trailers, and we'll be able to bring them into the park to be able to have their own experience and create that RV type of resort. The other thing that we want to be able to have with this is have additional infrastructure, creating bathhouses and the different amenities, Wi-Fi, cable TV and such that comes accustomed with this type of travel. Next, we're going to focus on disc golf, and this was really one of the grassroots efforts that came out of our community meeting process. We had a very, very passionate group of individuals that participated in our process and said, we need to have disc golf. This was one of the things that I will tell you was not on my radar when we began working on this master plan. To be honest, I wasn't really even sure what disc golf was. We have 10 bowls up at Waldron Park, and I thought that you just took a frisbee and you just threw it around and went in one basket. And there is a very serious population that plays disc golf. And this was one that we definitely went through with our planners, worked with our citizens, and came up with a great location at Mayflower Hills Park that made sense. And this particular group is a nonprofit organization, Roanoke Valley Disc Golf Association, and they're going to be partnering with us to be able to build this amenity. And what's going to be great about it is actually one of their representatives spoke at the board meeting. They not only want to have a great disc golf for our community, but they want to be able to host tournaments. And they want to be able to bring people from the outside of the area in to be able to participate in those tournaments. They want to be able to camp and explore parks, stay in cabins, stay in lodges. They want to be able to spend money in the Roanoke Valley while they're here, be able to play in Botetourt County, play up in Montgomery County, and then be able to play at the sport park. So we think that this is a great example of working with the community with something that potentially wasn't on your radar, but that really makes a lot of sense from a recreation standpoint, but also from a tourism standpoint. What's also great about this property is that it lends itself to being able to be laid out like a true golf course, with it being such a large parcel, to where you can actually have par 4 and par 5s for disc golf, and I'm told that's normally unheard of with a lot of disc golf courses. So we think that that's really going to help us with that development. Plus, we'll have a partner to be able to help us to build this. The next piece is building the mountain bike seals park. This is another partnership that we're currently working with the Roanoke International Mountain Bike Association to develop a plan for this. We're real excited about this because this also goes in line with what Virginia's Blue Ridge is focusing on, of trying to become a silver and gold level ride center for our area. We want to be able to build in several different types of having different jumps and attractions for folks to be able to ride their mountain bikes over, as well as develop additional miles of mountain bike trails. What this helps does is preserve the natural core of the park, but also be able to provide additional natural surface trails for folks to be able to experience a different type of activity at the park. We already have over 13 miles of mountain bike trails in the park, and this will allow us to be able to grow that footprint. All right, now we're going to move on to our equestrian area. This was another grassroots effort that really happened from our master planning process, where we had a significant number of people come out through our meeting process and talk to us from our horse community and said, you can't leave us out. That we need miles of equestrian trails to be able to ride. We need to be able to have an area to camp. We need to be able to have trail connections into the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we worked with the National Park Service to be able to develop a location to where we could, within the Blue Ridge Parkway trail system, to be able to develop connections to where people would be able to come to our park, be able to unload their horses, and be able to take long rides of 4, 5, 6, 7 miles to meet their needs in terms of what they were looking at from a recreation standpoint, but be able to cross over and be able to use the National Park Service trails. So we've been able to come up with a plan that we think that will work for them, and we're also going to be able to work with their local organizations to be able to help to hopefully build and fund some of these trails and connection points within the park. All right, now we're going to talk about the Roanoke River. As I mentioned before, we really are looking to develop this and increase additional access not only for kayaking and canoeing, but also for fishing. And we have 2 wonderful areas that we've identified on the river as potential attractions. One currently on the right is Rootrock Point. That is currently a project that the VRFA worked on several years ago and opened it up, and it has put in take-out points for people to be able to kayak and canoe. It's also a very, very popular fishing spot right now. We want to be able to maximize that with adding additional fishing piers, enhance the boating operations to where it's easier to get your boats in and out. But we also want to be able to put in additional access points further up within Explore Park where you can get in an inner tube, kayak, and canoe, and have much shorter runs than having to go all the way up to the Niagara Dam and run down. We want to be able to create a little bit easier opportunity to where you're able to do this in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2-hour time frames instead of having to do something that might take 3 or 3.5 hours based off of the water levels. Also, too, we want to be able to provide outfitter opportunities to where people can rent bikes, rent kayaks and canoes, rent inner tubes while they're there on site. All right, now we're going to move across the river to Bedford County. And quite honestly, I think this is the most scenic of the property that we have with Explore Park. We have almost 300 acres over on the Bedford County side. This is land that has been undeveloped and has not been used at all during the time of Explore Park, and it's very, very scenic. What we would like to do with Bedford Village is be able to create a new center in Bedford County where they kind of have their own version of Explore Park, and to have some of the similar type of attractions, but have things that are different that creates a tourism destination for Bedford County alone. But with that, being able to have direct connections through the Blue Ridge Parkway so that you're able to tie into both Roanoke County and the Bedford County side by using the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we're looking at building a small pond, putting in boathouse, day lodge, alpine coasters, a gondola loop, tubing hills, swimming, etc. Again, creating these type of opportunities that right now Bedford County does not have. We also want to be able to have this park to be more than just a 6-month operation. We want to be able to have it as a year-round destination where you're also able to have activities in the wintertime to be able to participate in. The snow tubing is one that I think is certainly something with our climate that may be a challenge, but we want to be able to use our mountain bike trails, especially when it snows, for different type of cross-country skiing. We want to be able to create opportunities, hopefully, for ice skating to where folks can come out and enjoy the park year-round and it just not be a seasonal type facility. Because again, if we want it to be a destination, we want to have people to be able to camp year-round, use cabins, be in a lodge, you've got to create opportunities for people to be able to stay busy throughout the year. And then the Bedford Event Lawn. This is a beautiful, pristine hill that I'll show you some photos that was actually taken from the site that we think would be a fantastic music venue. This is the top picture, is an actual picture of it. It overlooks the historic area there on the Roanoke County side. And we just think that this would be a great natural type of amphitheater to be able to host concerts and different music and events on that side. It's also got some tremendous scenic elevation changes that contributes not only to the challenges of connectivity of having different trails and creating the challenges on those trails, but it creates those different type of experiences, and that's something that we want to be able to do with our master plan. All right, so that's just a snapshot of what we're trying to do with the park in terms of outdoor recreation. What we want to do is really talk about, in the end, making this a tourist destination. Because while we certainly have day use, and it has, on average, most day use at a park, folks spend approximately $25 for each day that they go out to participate in something. That's paying for fuel, paying maybe for a picnic meal, amortizing the equipment that they're using, such as if it's a mountain bike or a kayak or a canoe. On average, that's a pretty big amount of money. But when you average it out of, let's say, 125,000 people a year, it's just over $3 million of economic impact. Where you have a big economic impact is tourists. On average, tourists spend 2.4 days in a destination, and they spend an average of $131 a day while they're there. When you times that by 125,000 visitors with 125,000 day visitors, you get over $42 million of economic impact. And what's great about tourists is that they come, they visit, but then they go back to where they live. And you don't have to provide government services for them. And you want them to be able to enjoy themselves and hopefully have repeat visits. So tourism is the direction that we want to be able to position Explore Park as the place to be able to go and to have the different type of outdoor recreation experiences, because we really feel that bringing in 500,000 people off of the Blue Ridge Parkway that has between 11 and 13 million visitors a year is not unreasonable. And when you look at that, it's $84 million in impact. That's can be a big deal for our economy, and kind of goes along with many of the other things that we're working on here in the Valley as trying to be an outdoor recreation destination. The other impacts of the plan that I'm particularly proud of is partnerships. One of the things that I've been doing leading up to yesterday was that I've been out doing presentations to just different organizations like yours, talking about what we want Explore Park to be. Now that the Board of Supervisors has approved the master plan, now we have to start talking about how we implement the plan. We've already been able to tell you what we want it to look like. Now we've got to be able to do the parts and pieces to make it happen. Well, to do that, we need partners. Roanoke County cannot do it alone. We need to be able to have different organizations to be able to partner with us, whether it's to do park cleanups, whether it's to help plant trees, whether it's to help fund different activities in the park or different amenities in the park. And so far, we've been able to do that with working with the Roanoke Valley Disc Golf Association. We've been able to do that with RIMBA. We also have a very successful volunteer program called Park Partners, where we have 4 or 5 different groups that are sponsors at Explore Park that help us to be able to take care of different areas through park cleanup and different type of service projects within the area. And to me, this is what's the exciting part. We're not just looking for private business to invest in the park. We're looking for community organizations to work with us to be able for them to be able to be proud of what we're doing at Explore Park. Because like I said when I started out talking with you today, we want this to be a great park for our residents first. Then it can be a great park for tourists. And so that's what really the piece that I would like to leave you with today is that we are looking for partners. If you have a particular interest, whether you're an individual, an organization, or a company, please feel free to reach out to me. We would love to talk to you about what your interests are and see if we have a program that fits into what it is that you're looking for. The other thing that we've talked about, it's been part of the media, and it was part of the discussion that was in the paper last night and on TV, is about what the cost is of the park. And we've provided cost estimates to the Board of Supervisors of what we think that a minimal investment is needed to be able to make Explore Park a reality. And when you look at the minimum investment, that's what we feel is needed for the infrastructure. Really where the bulk of the investment comes from the park is through private companies. We're not looking for taxpayers to pay money to build a lodge, to build a ropes course, to build the different recreational amenities. We want to bring in the experts from the field that know how to do this. There are people that are able to run country stores and gas stations that are experts in the field. We want them to do it. That's not something that we're looking at from a government aspect. We want a private company to come in and build a lodge, and we want them to be able to benefit from all of the different people that are visiting the park on an annual basis. So this plan is driven by private development. We want to be able to protect the integrity of the park. Out of the 1,100 acres, we're only planning to build on basically 220 acres of that. We want to leave this park as pristine because of that's what's special about it. It's all the different changes in elevation. It's because of the trees. It's because of the access to the river. And we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to protect the scenic beauty that is there. That's one of the things that if you've read Roanoke County's vision statement, is that one of the things that we're really proud of is scenic beauty in our area. And we want to make sure whether it's at Explore Park or any of our other parks, we're protecting that scenic beauty. And then lastly, and I've talked about it multiple times, we want Explore Park to be that tourist destination. We think that with the plan we have, this is something that is very different in one particular location than what we have across the Roanoke Valley. We also think with having a beautiful gateway of the Blue Ridge Parkway connecting to Explore Park, you don't have too many opportunities around the country where you have a park this size connecting to a national park. And we're very fortunate and blessed to have that, and we need to make sure that we take advantage of that. That is my presentation on the Explore Parks Master Plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
discussion today?
Blue Ridge Parkway in the wintertime closes. What's the conversation on keeping
That is a great question, and that was when we first started out our discussions with our consultants for the master plan. That was the first thing that they asked us is, how are we going to handle this? And we are very fortunate that the Blue Ridge Parkway has got a wonderful superintendent by the name of Mark Woods, and he very much is in support of what we're doing at the park. And they have agreed when we are ready to have the Blue Ridge Parkway open 12 months a year, that they will work with us to form an agreement to be able to do that.
You're talking about the section around Roanoke.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, probably what we would look at is between 220 and Route 24 is what we would keep open.
Plan showed two performance venues, and the city just spent a fair amount of money on outdoor parks. We've got the Dexter Center, we've got the Harvest International Hockey Mountain. Is it really that much interest in having more performance centers?
And I think one of the things that's real important, and this is what Roanoke County, City of Salem, Roanoke City, we have to do, is we have to complement each other and not compete. We don't really want to compete with Elmwood. We don't want to compete with the civic centers, any of the, even the Harvester. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking to create a unique community at Explore Park with the people that are camping, that are staying in cabins, staying in the lodge, to have different type of activities on site to help to keep them there. We've got to create the park almost as a resort, and to do that, we've got to be able to have some entertainment to be able to do so. We're not looking at being able to host, 5,000 people type of concerts, on the Roanoke County side. I think ultimately for Bedford County, that is what we want. But I think that, you're looking at a different market once you get across the Blue Ridge Parkway and across the Roanoke River, whether people, I think in their mind, when you say Bedford County, they think it's way out there. I think that we've got to be able to compete with and be a competitor of Roanoke City, we've got to be able to get past that stigma. And I'm not sure that we will anytime soon. So I think it's pretty safe to be able to have a venue that size on the Bedford County side. And I think for Roanoke County, it's having a much smaller, intimate venue for festivals and activities that are taking place in the park.
Yeah, I know an amphitheater has been in discussion for many years, so I don't think that's inconsistent with what we've been discussing.
Like I said, we just want to complement and have other type of venues, and some of it may not be music, but having different type of shows that could be out there. I mean, one of the things, I grew up going to was reptile shows, and I think that's something that, along the art with kids is having those type of options, and I think that we want to have venues that support those type of activities.
At one time, Explore Park served to provide historic education for kids in 4th and 5th grade who come by school bus from West Virginia and all over Southwest Virginia to learn from the costumes and pictures about Native American history, the Wall Hunter of the 18th century, Woodwater Farm, the Blue Ridge Village. I haven't heard you talk about Woodwater Farm or Coffee in School or the grist mill. What do you have in mind with respect to historic buildings and their interpretation?
Well, we don't want to lose sight of the history of those buildings. And we certainly right now are working on an interpretive program for the park. We are looking at doing an electronic interpretation program, actually doing a smartphone app for Droids and for iPhones. That will help to focus on the history of the buildings, but also of the environmental history of the site. As a part of the master plan, we did an environmental inventory of the site. And what we're looking at doing is still similar type of activities, but we're focusing on the environmental history of the site. And we're currently offering environmental education programs for local school systems. They're bringing buses out and participating in the fall and spring and even summer school out at Explore Park. What we want to do is be able to continue to tell the history of the buildings, but we're not looking to replicate and have a living history museum. We more want to tell the environmental history of the park, and we want that to be what folks take away from it from a learning aspect. And we've been able to identify over 300 special places in the park that have some type of cultural or environmental history, and that's what we're wanting to be able to use to tell our story. In the visitor center, we want to be able to redo the exhibit area and just to focus on the history, the authentic history that happened there on the site with the different plant life and animal life. And so that's something that we're going to do over the next few years.
Are you going to maintain those buildings?
Yes, we are. We're going to maintain the structures. We are going to try to repurpose all of the structures. The schoolhouse is one that we want to be able to open it up for our environmental education classes. We want to be able to eventually open up the grist mill. I think with the grist mill, we've got to kind of wait and see what happens with some of the private development. We think that there's going to be some folks that are going to want to be able to use that facility. And so before we get into making any significant plans, we want to be able to go through some of the private development options with some of these folks to make sure that we're in line with what we think works with what some of our private partners will want to do. But we plan to repurpose as many of the buildings as we can.
I appreciate your emphasis on protecting the environment.
It's very important. It's very important.
How long before you'll be connected to the Norfolk Agreement?
That is a great question. One of the things that we have not made public to the board of supervisors yet, so if you promise not to tell anybody, we have received a $1.7 million grant from the Eastern Federal Lands Division. It's a flat grant, and we have to partner with the National Park Service and with the Virginia Department of Transportation to administer the grant. But we're going to be able to, we're actually getting ready hopefully to award a contract to design the Roanoke River Greenway from the Blue Ridge Parkway across the closed landfill that connects to Explore Park. If we can do that in the next 18 months of doing the design work and getting all of our permits, then we hopefully will have been successful. We're applying for smart scale funding through the Virginia Department of Transportation to build the greenway from that ending point at that start of Explore Park all the way to Withdrawal Point. So we hope within the next 48 months to have all of our greenway projects complete in Roanoke County. And then you will be able to go from Greenville Park all the way to Withdrawal Point, have those 30 miles. Yes.
I noticed if your timeline goes back to 1985 here, that's the year I was chairman of the board of supervisors, and we voted to involve Roanoke County with this project for the first time. I want to tell you about the word vindication, because we caught a lot of grief over the next 6 or 7 years after we did that. And I'm really glad to see the board of supervisors still there, and you're doing this because of that book, Mark facing up in North Virginia. It's a huge draw, as you know, up there year-round, and quite a nice stimulus, very similar to your plans here. So thank you to the board of supervisors for continuing with the vision. It'll work.
And I appreciate you saying that, Steve. I think that, when you see any of our board members out, please thank them for doing this, because if they hadn't adopted this plan, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. And I think that it is very important that we finish what was started, 30 years ago with Explore Park. It is a wonderful, untapped resource. And there's no reason that we can't do these basic things out of the park and make it into the destination that I know everybody wants it to be.
All right, thank you very much. Very